Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's class. In the last class, we discussed the different operation methods, which include job, batch, flow, and mass customization. To give a brief overview, job production is when we produce a single unique item from start to finish before beginning the next one. Whereas batch production is when we produce a limited number of identical items in a group or a batch, as they call it. An example includes, one of 99 cars produced. They are produced in a single batch. The next one is flow production, where large quantities of a standardized product are produced in a continuous and uninterrupted process. And the last one is mass customization, where the production system uses flexible computer aided technology and multi skilled labor to produce goods that are customized to each individual's specifications the way they want them. Moving on, we will now discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the processes that we discussed before. The first one is job production, and its advantages are that it is fully tailored, meaning that it can meet exact customer specifications, which guarantees satisfaction every time. Because if a customer wants something made in the way they want, they will go for job production and it will meet all their expectations every time. The next one is that we can employ premium pricing for this, because when we just customize everything and make something as per the specifications of the customer, in that scenario we can charge them a premium for not just standardizing everything but following their specifications. So in that case, pricing is also possible. The next one is high employee motivation. If you've done any work, if you've done an internship or worked at any other place, you would know that doing the same thing over and over again for years at a time gets very tiring. It gets emotionally and mentally draining. So when items are customized, when they are made differently, when there is a certain level of creativity, the employees, they are also highly motivated, their motivation increases. So the employees are satisfied with their work in that scenario. It is also suitable for personal services, things like haircuts, legal advice, architecture. When you're designing a home, when you go for a haircut, you want a specific hairstyle according to your face shape, according to your hair length and hair type, stuff like that. And the last one is a strong marketing advantage. You can say things like handcrafted or bespoke or artisan, stuff like that. You can say that and you can feed it back into the premium pricing thing, that you can use the same thing to market yourself and then charge a premium for offering those same services. The disadvantages are that each unit cost increases because there is skilled labor involved, there are bespoke materials involved. If your supplier is giving you a standardized item and you want to make a customized thing, then you will most probably not go for the standardized item. You will also want a customized thing from your supplier. Hence, the supplier will also charge you a premium, just like you are charging a premium to your own customers. So, in that scenario, the unit cost will increase. Also, production is slow because there is no automation. I mean, if you go for a standardized process, there are pre-made machines and processes and services. So in that scenario, it is easy to do everything quickly and efficiently. But if you go for just job production where everything is customized, in that scenario, production will be slow, as there will be no automation and each task will have to be done manually. The error is extremely expensive, because if you make a mistake, if you waste anything, the whole thing will need to be scrapped. It will not be There will be no batch which would absorb the cost of mistakes. There will be a very low chance for error in that scenario. The next one is highly skilled workers are costly to attract, train, and retain. I mean, if you are going for a bespoke or customized item, handcrafted item, if you want to make those, the labor that you want will also come at a premium because they are very highly skilled. And if you train your own labor, that will also cost you a lot. That will also cost you in time. And furthermore, it will be very hard to retain them because other people, other companies might also try to attract them. They might try to give them better salaries, better packages. The last one is that you cannot benefit from economies of scale. As we discussed, economies of scale mean that when you do a certain things over a large a large number of times, if you make the same thing a large number of times, in that scenario, your cost actually decreases per unit because you get bulk discounts, you get the benefit of automating. So in that scenario, if you make something that is handcrafted or bespoke, in that scenario you cannot avail those benefits. The next thing we will be talking about is going to be batch production. The advantages of batch production are as follows. The first one is that it has more variety than flow production. Flow production is basically when you automate everything and everyone comes out to be the same, as we discussed before. But in this case, there is more variety than flow production because different batches serve different market segments. So, for example, if you were to produce protein bars, the first type of protein bars would be normal protein bars, the second type would be gluten free, the third type would be vegan, the fourth type would be, extra protein, the fifth type would be low calories. So there is more variety, and you can serve different customers, different market segments at different price points, which gives you a competitive advantage in the market, as we have discussed before. The second one is bulk purchasing of materials reduces material unit cost slightly. Unlike job production, where we made each unit individually, in this case, we can, bulk purchase and get a slight discount, which is not as much as flow production because everything is the same in flow production. In this case, for each batch, we might get a different sort of discount, a slight discount, which would decrease the unit cost and increase our margins. The third one is that workers gain some variety across different batches, which means that there is reduction in boredom versus flow production. So flow production, again, everything is the same as we discussed before. For job production, in in batch production, in this scenario, the difference is that we produce different things but in different batches. So each product is not different than the next, but each batch is different than the next. So workers are not very bored. So there is a slight uptick in their motivation. The fourth one is that lower setup cost than flow production, so it is accessible to medium-sized firms. So in this scenario, the overall size of the machinery, overall size of the plant is not very big. So it can be afforded by small and medium-sized entities that we call SMEs. So because it is not very big in size, because of the nature of the entire thing, where you have to make everything different for each batch. So in this scenario, some machines would be automated. So for example, for protein bars, the whatever is used in it, for example, if all the protein bars are of chocolate, so the chocolate melting and the chocolate, overall molding or whatever it is called, in that scenario, only that would be automated. The rest of the things would be separate, they would be different. So it would not increase the size of the plant a lot, so it can be afforded by medium sized firms. The last one is that it is easier to switch output mix than flow production, which is good for operational flexibility. So if you want to change the batch, if you want to introduce a new batch, different specifications, different attributes, it would be easier than flow production, which is mainly because the batch production is used to facilitate different attributes that are required in each production cycle. So it gives you flexibility over whatever you produce. This means that it is easier to switch your output. Whereas for flow production, you cannot switch your output a lot. All right, moving on to the disadvantages. The one of the disadvantages is that high work in progress stocks are to be held between production stages, which ties up the working capital. This means that, for example, if there are five processes to making, making a protein bar, in that scenario, if you get to process four, the materials used in process 1, 2, and 3, they're going to be held, they cannot be used for anything else. If an emergency rises, the material produced from being processed in processes 1, 2, and 3, they cannot be used in any separate thing. They can only be used for process 4. So all the material that is produced prior to whatever production stage you're in, all the material produced prior to that will be held up until it is all completed. So that is one of the disadvantages. The second one is that machinery must be reset between batches, which means downtime leads to lost output. Meaning that if you change the specifications of the machinery to facilitate different characteristics of the next batch. So, for example, if you're moving from normal protein bars to vegan protein bars, or if you're moving from non protein bars to gluten free protein bars, in that scenario, what happens is that you will have to change the machinery, you will have to change the input. So that will lead to, time that is spent by engineers and, mechanics or whatever, whoever is operating on the machines. So in that scenario, that time cannot be used for production, and that will lead to lost output. The third one is that it requires complex production scheduling, which increases management costs. This means that, for example, if you are using different production stages. So, for example, if the first production stage uses 3 days, the second one uses 2 days, and the third one uses 5 days, in that scenario, you will have to make different schedules. Let me give you an example. So, if, for example, if this is the time spent for production one, production process one, and it is being done simultaneously by three machines. So machine 1, machine 2, machine 3. But for production 2, you have four machines, but the time spent is just this much. So the time spent is significantly less. You have to time it such that the output from production 1 is fed here, the output from production 2 is fed here, production 1 is also fed here, and all these are not left, non-operational, as these produce different items. So you have to time these production process 2, you know with production process 1. So this means that there will be a higher amount of planning, and it will lead to an increase in management costs. The third one is that no single product is completed until the entire batch finishes all stages, like we discussed here in the second point, in this first point, sorry, that no single product can be completed until the entire batch finishes all stages. So all the work in process stock is going to be held there, and there will be no complete product until everything is completed. And the last one is that warehouse space required for intermediate work in process stocks between stages. This means that, for example, like we discussed here, that if you are stuck at process 5, production stage 5 or 4, the output from production stage 1, production stage 2, production stage 3, these will all be held by the company, by the firm, and it will be held in their warehouses, and it will be handled by the warehouse manager and the employees there. So this will lead to incremental costs that are going to be borne by the company, because the entire thing is not streamlined, it is not optimized. All right. So this is a drawback, that there will be warehouse costs as well. The next one is flow production. The first advantage of flow production is that it leads to very low unit costs, because you achieve economies of scale, and there is continuous automation. So, for example, if you were making water bottles or any sort of bottles, or if you were making any sort of soft drinks, you would first make the bottle, or you would get it from somewhere else, and then you would go through the whole process of mixing it, filling the bottle, closing the cap, branding the bottle with the entire package, putting it in a crate or in a box or whatever. And then you can do it continuously with the help of machines, and you can do it non-stop 24/7. And that is because we as humans have achieved automation on the machines. So you can achieve economies of scale and continuous automation, which would lead to very low unit costs. There is high consistency because automated processes produce identical products. This means that since since the machines work on them, the element of human error is considerably decreased. It is decreased to the extent that there is a very low margin of machine errors. So in that scenario, the entire output is quite consistent and each bottle is identical to the next one. I mean, how many of you can remember that you would have picked up two Coca-Cola bottles and seen that they have different, packaging, or there is defect in one and not a defect in the other. So there is a high level of consistency. Again, like I discussed before, there is 24/7 operation possible because there is a maximization of capital. Okay, capital utilization. The fourth one is that division of labor increases individual task efficiency over time. So this means that there is a considerable amount of efficiency that is achieved in flow production because the division of labor, it is structured such that each person is working at the most efficient way, most efficient amount possible. There is no way for them to become more efficient. So it means each task is completed quickly on time, and this leads to again back to low unit cost. The fifth one is that bulk purchasing of inputs reduces material cost further. I mean, again, since you're producing the same thing over and over and over again without any changes at all, in that scenario, you will receive bulk purchasing discounts from your suppliers, and using those, you can just lead to that could lead to even lower input costs, which could lead to even lower pricing, which could lead to more customers. All right. However, the disadvantages are that there is an enormous capital investment required to establish an assembly line because an assembly line is quite complex. It is highly automated to the point that there is very low human intervention required. So, in that scenario, a large amount of capital investment is required. The second one is that machine breakdown halts the entire production line, which means that there is a very costly downtime since these machines work 24/7 and they work very quickly. Because of that, if there is a breakdown in any part, if there are like 10 processes and then process number 7 there's a breakdown, everything stops, nothing can go on. So there is a very large amount of loss that is sustained by the company if there is a machine breakdown. The next one is that the highly repetitive tasks are deeply demotivating, linked to absenteeism and turnover. This means that since people who are working, labor who's actually working with those machines, they face the same thing over and over and over again. All right, they're mostly just there for monitoring that if something is defective and the machines didn't detect it, they are there for that. Or for just starting and stopping the machines, just routine tasks. And those tasks are not very fulfilling to the human mind, to the human heart. So because of that, it is very deeply demotivating. Furthermore, it is inflexible. Changing or stopping a production line is expensive and production. So, if you were to make a small, minute change to the production line, it would be very expensive because nothing, is very cheap about those machines. So, it would cost a lot. It would be disruptive because everything would have to be stopped, like we discussed before, and it would also lead to opportunity cost because you're not making the machine, making the products that you were before. And the last one is that high warehousing costs for large volumes of finished goods are awaiting dispatch. Since the machines are operating 24/7, some machines, in that scenario, those machines would, just stack up product again and again and again and again until the product is cleared out of the warehouse by, whoever is going to take them away. So this would lead to warehousing costs where they would have to be maintained. If it is a product that can be spoiled, it would have to be refrigerated and everything of the sort. All right. Next, we move to mass customization. The next one is mass customization. Mass customization resolves the traditional trade off between variety, job, and efficiency flow using flexible CAD CAM production systems. CAD is computer aided design, and CAM is computer aided manufacturing, production systems, and multi skilled workers. A car manufacturer offering hundreds of combinations of color, trim, engine, and optional features from the same production facility is the most definitive example. It works hand in hand with differentiated and focused marketing strategies to target specific segments and command higher added value than a pure mass market product. Now, I hope you understood that for mass customization, it means that the overall structure, overall body, for example, of a car is the same. However, if you want a different color, if you want a different trim, and if you want optional features like a for I think for Lamborghinis, for Audis, for you know Mercedes, for these cars, for these high-end cars, you have to contact the manufacturer and they allow you to add in specific things no matter how small. So for example, if you want separate cup holders, if you want a certain ambient lighting, if you want a different color trims, if you want the stitching to have a certain color, you can contact them. You can say that I want this. That does not mean that each car is started in the same way, that it is each car is not going through job production, where one car goes through each process first and then it is ended. It does not work like that. It is made in a separate way, that it is made using flow production, right? And the separate things, the things that can be customized, so for example, if the trim, if the color can be customized, it is then customized. So for example, to give you a very clear example, if you are making three Mercedes, the first one is all black, the interior is black, the color of the outside is black, the rims are black, all right, everything except the logo is black. In that scenario, the manufacturer, Mercedes, is going to produce the hood of the car, the metal sheet, the entire metal of the car. It's going to be produced in, all black, and then it will be produced with a specific metal. I'm not sure which metal, just a specific metal. The rims are going to be also of a specific metal and it will be painted black, right? The interior would be made from a specific leather and then it would also be colored black, all right? The next one is going to be, another black car with, golden rims, or I don't know, beige interior, all right? Sounds ugly, but go with it. So a black car would be so the how the manufacturer would make it is going to be that they would make the same sheet of metal for the body of the car. They would paint it black, and for the rims, they would also be made of the same material as was made for the previous car, which had black rims, right? So it would be made from the same material, but it would be colored golden or red or whatever. All right. And as for the interior, it would also be the same as the previous car, and it would be painted. It would be colored beige or whatever the color, whatever the person wants. All right. And for the last car, it would be such that the person who is ordering the car would want that the car should be white. It should have, you know, I don't know, gray rims. All right, but the interior should not be made of metal. It should be made of it should not be made of leather. It should be made of fall leather or whatever other material. The same process is going to be followed. The sheet of the metal sheet that is used to make the car is going to be the same. The metal the material used to make the rims is going to be the same. They are going to be colored different. The car would be colored white, the rims would be colored gray, and for the interior it would have to be specifically made separately while the entire body of the car and while the rims of the car are being made. All right, the interior would be made separately in a different color, and then it would be added to the car. So it would have the benefits of both flow production and it would have the benefits of job production. For flow production, it would be such that the materials would be same. The materials would be, you could achieve economies of scale with the materials, you could achieve bulk discount with the material. However, you could also add an element of customization to the car, which is found in job production. All right, this is basically mass customization. It is a hybrid approach. So moving on to the advantages and disadvantages, it combines low unit cost of floor production with bespoke appeal of job production, as I just discussed. All right, Higher added value through differentiated positioning, premium pricing is possible. So when you offer this, combines low unit costs of flow production with bespoke appeal of job production, it will lead to higher added value, which would lead to differentiated positioning in the market. And as we discussed, it would lead to premium pricing, which means your profit margin goes up. It also leads to greater worker satisfaction as computers handle their most repetitive tasks. So, for example, if taking the example of cars, if the workers have to paint everything black all day for the rest of their lives, they would not be happy. But if they have to make different combinations, if they have to make it beautiful and they find meaning in their work, they would be motivated. The fourth one is that accurate computerized records support inventory management and forecasting. So this means that inventory could be managed more efficiently, due to the computerized records, and they would be forecasting that we're gonna have this much demand in the next 3 months, so we have to start prepping for it now. Quick product line changes via software. Operational flexibility is retained. So anything that is to be changed in the product line, it can be done via software. So if you want to paint the interior, black and not beige, if you want to paint it in maroon and not, green, then you can do it via the software that is to be used, or you can, just change the paint and it can be done very easily. Disadvantage is that it is very expensive to set up. Computer aided design and computer aided manufacturing, robots and flexible machinery is required. All these have to be set up and these cost a lot of money. Technology becomes outdated quickly and our ongoing capital investment is quite necessary. All right. This means that because it heavily relies on modern computer techniques, because of the quick advancements in the tech space, this means that things can get outdated quite quickly. The next one is that employees need retraining as production systems evolve, and this adds to cost and disruption, which is linked with the previous point that since everything is moving at a faster pace, you have to keep training your employees, and that also costs a lot of money. And increased unemployment as flexible machines replace manual workers. So some things that a person can do that it is not necessary, that should not necessarily be done via via the hand of a person. That sort of thing is can be replaced quite easily by machinery. So that would increase unemployment. And the next one is that system failure can disrupt the entire customization workflow. So one thing that fails, if a system fails, that can disrupt the entire workflow. So we made a mnemonic to how to decide a production method, how to choose a production method, and it goes by SNAP. S stands for size of business and market. So for a small firm or market, a job or batch production process is considered safe. For a large and stable market, flow production method should be preferred. For N, which is nature or uniqueness of product, if you want a bespoke or unique product, you should go for job. If you want identical or standardized products, you should go for flow. A stands for amount of demand, and if the demand is infrequent or variable, you could go for job or batch processing, and if it is large and steady, should go for flow. For price sensitivity, if it is a premium product, you should definitely go for job, so you could charge a premium. However, if it is a job cost competitive market, you should go for flow. All right. I hope this basically summarizes the entire conversation that we've had up till now, including the entire discussion about what all these things are, including the advantages and disadvantages, everything. This sums it up. All right. Let me erase that. And moving on, problems on of changing production method. So there are different problems when you are changing production method. So changing from one production method to another is costly, complex, and carries significant operational risk. Four key areas are affected. The first one is costs. New machinery, factory configuration, possible redundancy payments, and staff retraining represent major capital expenditure. So when you change everything, you have to get new machinery, you have to reconfigure your factory, you have to make changes in the overall factory, And there can also be redundancies where some employees, some labor are not required anymore, so you have to make redundancy payments. And there is staff retraining required, which represent major capital expenditure, which often require external finance. The next one is capacity. Output may be disrupted during the transition period, causing customer orders to be delayed or unfulfilled. All right, this may risk reputation and market share. This means that if the output is disrupted during the transition period and customer orders are delayed, this would risk your reputation. This would risk your overall, goodwill in the market. This would harm your reputation and future orders, even if you change your machinery. All right. The third one is human resources. Sorry about that. The skill profile required may change fundamentally. Moving from job to flow production de-skills the workforce. How does it de-skill the workforce? For one, if you are moving from job to flow, this means that you are going from handcrafted items to not necessarily handcrafted. Just for the sake of example, you're moving from handcrafted items to automated items that are made by automation. So there isn't a lot of skill involved in all that. The next one, it means also includes moving from flow to mass customization requires extensive retraining. So if you go from flow, which is only automation, to mass customization, which involves a certain level of, customization, in that scenario, you would also have to spend a lot of money on retraining, as your staff may not be as skilled anymore. Marketing implications. A different production method changes the product's nature, quality, and cost structure. This would require a coordinated update to the marketing mix. The marketing mix that we have discussed before, which includes price, product, promotion, and place. This would, change all the four of those things. So these were the problems of changing production methods. So if a question, comes in the exam where you have to discuss it, you can use these four things to discuss that. Exam tip: questions on changing production methods are among the most popular in operations. Always discuss both the benefits of the new method and the transition costs or problems. The CAIE mark scheme rewards balanced, contextualized analysis, not just a straightforward bullet points. They want you to give us some sort of context. They want you to link everything to whatever you have written. For 12 mark, discuss question structure or answer, benefits of the new method, costs and problems of making the change, factors that determine whether the change is worthwhile, a clear conclusion. So this is an exam style question. You should try to do that by yourself, and these are the different levels at which you will be graded. So this would be, how you would achieve your marks. So what you have to try to do is get to level 3, where well structured discussion of multiple implications, recognizing trade-offs, and reaches a reasoned conclusion about when whether the change is likely to be worthwhile with context dependent qualifications. So the section summary, the entire summary of the this whole thing is that job production means one-off production. It is bespoke. It has a high unit cost. It needs highly skilled labor. It also contributes to high motivation of the employees, and it is best for low volume. Batch production is when you have to make groups of identical items. It is medium costs because it is not a lot of cost, but it is not negligible cost either. Work in process stocks between stages are stuck, and machine reset leads to downtime. For flow, it is continuous, it is standardized, it has the lowest unit cost, and but it requires high capital. It is demotivating to the employees, and it is incredibly inflexible. Mass customization is flexible CAD CAM plus multi skilled labor equals variety at near flow unit costs, meaning that even though you don't achieve the lowest amount of costs, it is quite near to the unit cost that is achieved by flow production. So to choose the method, you have to use SNAP. SNAP means size, nature, amount, and price. And it also discussed the when you are discussing changing methods, the problems which include significant costs and capital, HR issues, capacity disruption, and marketing. So this was it for the class. If you liked it, let me know. If you do not understand something, also let me know. Take care. Goodbye.